Okay. Yeah. Cynthia, can you hear me? Cynthia. Oh. Okay. Thanks. So. It's 10 o'clock.
Chair, we can begin.
Okay, we can begin. Okay. Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to the newest meeting of the Elections Commission. Waiting for announcements. There's no announcement. Oh. Hang on, we have a little quick technical difficulty, which we're going to solve here in a second. We don't. I tried to start, but. I don't know why we have a mixture. Where's our host?
Chair, are you ready for the roll call?
Yes, well, I'm ready for the opening announcement.
Okay, just a few housekeeping things. This Zoom meeting is being recorded and the recording and written summary will serve as the official minutes. All participants will be muted until public testimony, and all commissioners should have their camera on for the duration of the meeting.
Okay. Calling this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chair Anderson,
Present.
Commissioner Aquino,
Present.
Commissioner Curtis,
Mike, you're muted.
I see Commissioner Curtis here.
There you go.
Commissioner
Now they're on
Kikuchi.
unmuted.
Oh, thank
Here.
you. Commissioner Kohler, Commissioner Kuwata,
Present.
Commissioner McAdam,
Present.
Commissioner Takenaka.
Present.
We have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you. On our schedule today, item number 6, unfortunately, in that the election has not been finally certified, that will not be part of today's discussion. So next up is the status of operations report.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so you have my report in front of you. The general election was conducted on November 8th. Over 400,000 voters voted in the general. There were 4 contests for cause filed with the Supreme Court. One had to do with the audit, the other had to do with a council contest in Maui. Another contest was the nonpartisan qualifications, and finally there was a contest filed regarding the certification of the primary election. The results were released at 8:15 p.m. on Tuesday, general election day. That's due to voters still in line voting at the voter service center. The law prohibits us from releasing results until all voting has been completed. After that, we had 2 recounts. Senate District 22 and a Kauai Council race. The recounts confirmed the results of the election, and no results have changed. New to the final results, election day final results were posted at 9:20 p.m. on Wednesday. And new for the general election, we've had over under 30,000 voters sign up for ballot tracking alerts. So voters could sign up to get alerts of when their ballot has been mailed, received, and processed for counting. With that said, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, commissioners?
Dottie, I have a question.
Sure.
Hey, Scott, when is the election going to be certified?
So right now, the contest for causes with the Supreme Court, it's when the Supreme Court rules on those 4 contests for cause.
Chair, I had one question
Yes, sir.
for Scott. Scott, I was just wondering on page 2, that reference to the County of Hawaii revisited its procedures based on what it learned from the experience. And we work with the vendor to add in additional safeguards to the program to ensure such an error did not occur again. I was just curious, was that a system-wide application that was being applied to correct, or was this something that was unique to Hawaii County?
So the way the system worked was it defaulted to the primary election. We made it default to the most current election. So if you, for whatever reason, they didn't realize that it was defaulted to the primary. So when they loaded the data up, it was from the primary election, not the general election. Once they did, like I said, once they did figure out that there was an error, they quickly notified all the voters that were affected, sent out a message and corrected that situation. But we did change the system so that now it defaults to the current election rather than the primary election.
Okay. And that was sort of a system-wide correction so that all the counties operate like that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Next is will be public testimony. Any interested person may submit comments or testimony on any agenda. This is very important, on any agenda item. And please note that we've had to drop item number 6. So the other thing before, and by the way, we will do the same as we did last meeting. Going to allow 3 minutes. However, a couple little quick rules. One, any threat to any member of this commission will not be allowed to continue. That's number one. And I wanted to just mention that while you can talk about whatever item you want to that's on the agenda, it's important to know what our actual function is here and what it isn't. The Office of Elections and the Commission, we don't make the election laws. Those laws are either made at the Square Building on Beretania Street or in Washington, D.C. So if what you want to do is change the way elections are done, that's where you really need to go. And just be aware of that. And with that, I will start with our first person to speak. Amy?
If you'd like to testify, please click raise hand under reactions on Zoom. And if you're joining us by phone, please press *9. When recognized, please unmute your microphone before speaking. You may also turn on your video at this time. For the record, please state your first and last name and the items you'll be testifying on. To ensure that we will have sufficient time to hear all testimony, each testifier will have 3 minutes to testify. Once your time has expired, you'll be asked to conclude your remarks. The first testifier is Corinne Solomon, followed by Amanda Kwiatkowski.
You're there you go.
Yeah, I was muted. Aloha Elections Commission members and Chief Officer of Elections Scott Nago. My name is Corinne Solomon. Thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony. I have 3 recommendations regarding the status of operations. Number 1, I recommend making the cast vote records available to the public after the elections by posting them on your website. San Francisco County took this initiative and posted the CVR and other elections data on their website. My written testimony has the link and shows a screenshot of what they've made available to the public. The same should be done with the ballot images, batch summary reports, audit logs, system logs, and other relevant elections data. The citizen election researchers aren't going anywhere, and posting these records publicly would eliminate the need to address multiple public records requests and increase transparency, which is lacking. I do understand the different roles of the State Office of Elections versus the county clerks. I have heard Scott Nago deflect questions in past meetings with the answer, that is the county's job. We are frustrated with this response and lack of follow-up. The OE can argue that the next 2 points are within the county's jurisdiction, but for the greater good of the public, I ask that the OE bridge the gap and work together with the counties to address and support the following. Point number 2, mail-in and in-person ballots are not treated equally. If there is an issue with an in-person voter's ballot, it can be resolved in real time at the Voter Service Center. Mail-in voters are not given this immediate opportunity to correct deficiencies, and the curing process differs from county to county. Some counties call voters to cure their ballots while others send letters. Senate Race 22 on Oahu was decided by 40 ballots. There may have been a different outcome in this race if voters were called and emailed to cure ballots instead of receiving snail mail letters. My second recommendation is that attempts to contact voters for ballot carrying should be uniform across all counties and should be done with the highest degree of effort, not the minimum. My third point, there are no official observers for signature verification and ballot chain of custody at the drop boxes and post office pickups. Public records requests for ballot data from the printers has been denied. We have no clear picture of how many ballots are out there and how they are reconciled. My third recommendation is that observers should be present at every handoff point of our ballots and data should be given to the public, not hidden. If the county clerks can provide data on the ballot carrying success rates using different methods to reach voters, I would be happy to aggregate that data and create a report for you. I have included other offers to help with points 2 and 3 in my written testimony. I've been taught to never bring a problem unless you can offer a solution. Please take the time to read the written testimony for more details. It is my personal belief that universal mail-in voting needs to be eliminated, ballot harvesting made illegal, and voting needs to be done in person with voter ID at the precinct level with no voting machines and black box software. Until this gains bipartisan support and can be addressed at the legislative level, I hope you are willing to respectfully listen to and address the concerns of the Hawaii residents who are included in this now 60% of American citizens who have lost faith in the current election system. Thank you for letting me testify.
Thank you.
Next testifier is Amanda Piewakowski, followed by Lindsay Rex. We'll move on to Lindsay Rex, followed by Janet Neeson. Okay, we'll move on to Janet Neeson, followed by Julie Shaw.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Anderson and Commission members. I'm Janet Mason from the League of Women Voters. My remarks today concern the general election and the status of operations report. In the big picture, and I should say that League members served as election observers at the Oahu Counting Center, the Big Island Counting Center, and we also visited the Oahu elections, Oahu Honolulu County Elections Mail Center on several occasions. The turnouts statewide were better than the primary at 48.7% versus 39.8%, but we're still disappointed because our aim is to make sure that we have a plurality of citizens voting. We were gratified to see that 96% of those who voted used mail voting. We don't know why the turnout rate is persistently low, but we know because we think it's really already easy to register to vote and vote in Hawaii. But we know the circumstances of each election are different. We thought the Office of Elections was very successful this year in recruiting and overseeing volunteers and election observers. And the website is, and other voter education efforts have greatly improved. Interestingly, what's less apparent to the public is the fact that our voter registration rolls have dramatically increased in the past 4 years, with over 100,000 people newly registered to vote. And we thank both the county clerks and the Office of Elections for this effort, and we recognize that much of it is due to our 2021 automatic voter registration law. We did receive one complaint from a voter on the Big Island who tried to register through the Department of Motor Vehicles. He received his driver's license in 3 weeks, but even after 3 weeks, he hadn't received confirmation that he was registered to vote. We thank the Office of the County Clerk in Honolulu for improved transparency regarding signature verification. It's now possible to see this work firsthand from remote televisions. However, I echo some of the comments of Ms. Solomon and recognizing again that it is not part of the duties of the Office of Elections. The league believes there should be official election observers present at all times throughout the chain of custody of the ballots, mailing out and receiving them as well. We are gaining more confidence that the Oahu County Clerk does a very good job of selecting and citing the voter service centers. We noted that they color code each incoming envelope to indicate where it came from. And that gives them some indication of future demand for the voter service centers at different locations. We participated in both recounts at the for the general election. And it's very clear that we need legislation to lengthen the time allowed for the recounts, which is currently 72 hours post-elections. This is great for the candidate and for the voters, but it really strains the resources of the Office of Election. If we had a large recount, say for governor's race, or many smaller recounts, I really don't think it would be possible to finish them all in 72.
Janet, thank you. We've let you kind of go past.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next testifier is Julie Shaw, followed by Edwin Boyer. Okay, we'll move on to Edwin Boyer, followed by Scott Shedko.
Greetings to the honorable members of the commission, Chief Officer Scott Nago. Mahalo for your continued service. My name is Edwin Boyant. My testimony concerns the status of election report and the mandatory audit process, and a generalized comment. Allow me to say briefly, in the previous meeting, many new participants likely engaged in their first public hearing. Civic zeal often exceeds knowledge, but we can always employ fundamental courtesy, even in passionate criticism. As a reminder, the members of this commission are volunteers. Now, point of information for Chair Anderson. Per the agenda and instructions for this hearing, written testimony would have had been submitted prior to the posting of the status of election report. So there has to be adequate time to review reports in order to prepare informed testimony. I must note the prepared materials give no specifics of the mandatory audit process. After the last hearing, I submitted a request to the Office of Election for the mandatory audit process to be added as a specific agenda item. Observationally, it was not. Additionally, I requested a copy of the same audit report that was provided to the members of the commission. My request was not fulfilled. For the edification of the commission, video of the last meeting was used as propaganda in a recent news segment by a local television outlet. Footage of a testifier who was also a candidate for public office was cut into a segment about the potential for political violence in Hawaii. The testifier was passionate, but made no overtures towards violence or threats. So participation in public hearings is being discouraged and punished by our local media. Now, if issues raised in public hearings are not substantially addressed, if requests for agenda items are not acknowledged, what is the purpose of the hearings other than a form of community political theater? Mahalo again to the Chief Election Officer, the members of the commission, and other testifiers. My marks are concluded.
Thank you.
Next testifier is Scott Shedko, followed by Jamie Detweiler.
Hello, yes, my name is Scott Shedko, and I'm a resident of Oahu, average citizen, concerned citizen. I have many concerns surrounding our election process. including vulnerability of our voting machines and voter rolls, security of drop boxes, security of ballots in the United States Postal Service system, and lack of chain of custody. Most of the others speaking today are going to hit these issues, so I would like to just make a simple point of something I see as discrimination. Are homeless allowed to vote in this state and in this country? Yes, they are. Now, if a homeless person decides they would like to take a closer look at our election system, if they are part of the 60% of Americans that do not trust our system, are they able to? Well, $1,000 for a copy of state voter rolls, $1,000 plus for a copy of audit paperwork, $600 to look at a copy of the contract Hawaii has for signature verification. So can a homeless person afford to look at any of this information available under the Freedom of Information Act? I repeat, the Freedom of Information Act. Can your average citizen who really has freedom to access this information? The rich. So not only is this discrimination, but it seems like a deterrent to anyone in the general public who might have suspicions. And again, this would be 60%, I think higher in Hawaii than the national average. Suspicions about whether we have accurate voter rolls or if audits are being done correctly. So about 40 seconds left here. If you are going to say it is not our responsibility here, have you or Scott Nago reached out to anyone else in government and said, hey, this seems like an unfair practice? We want every voter to be confident. How can we make every part of our election transparent to every citizen, whether they live in a mansion or in a tent?
15 seconds.
And I think that covers what I wanted to say today. Mahalo.
Good, thank you. Next speaker.
Aloha. Thank you, Chair Anderson and Commissioners, for this opportunity to testify. My name is Jamie Detweiler, Hawaii State House of Representative candidate for District 37, representing Mililani and Waipio Gentry. I'm also the 2023 President-elect of the Hawaii Federation of Republican Women. The subject of my testimony today initially encompassed item number 6, but I also think it pertains to item number 7. So I'm going to go ahead with this testimony. Before considering a salary adjustment, especially an increase, please take note of the current poor performance practices of Mr. Nago, Chief Election Officer. Number 1, failure to perform audits in the 2022 primary and general elections in accordance with HRS 16-42. I recommend that the results of the audits be published for the public. Number 2, failure to respond to my written request to comply with HRS 16-42 received by the Office of Elections on November 14th by certified U.S. mail. Number 3, failure to respond to my written request for a hand count of District 37 received by the Office of Elections on November 14th by U.S. certified mail. Based on the following evidence of maladministration, here is the list. Number 1, no documentation of chain of custody for Dropbox and U.S. mail ballots. Number 2, the disparity between the favorable results of my opponent for the mail-in votes and favorable results for myself for the in-person votes. The disparity in percentage is very great. Number 3, no post-election accounting of unused pre-printed ballots used at Honolulu Hale, Kapolei Hale, and the Voda Service Centers. Number 4, no chain of custody for supplemental drop box used at Honolulu Hale on election day that was wheeled out to the curb at 6:45 p.m. because the primary box was full. And the last point, dirty voter rolls. On November 6, 2020, Mr. Nago stated that over 100,000 ballots were mailed to the wrong address or to deceased people. That's 1/8 of the registered voters. This is not acceptable and not in compliance with federal law. For these and many other concerns from we the people, I strongly recommend an evaluation rating of poor. I also recommend a written admonishment to include suspension with consideration to remove from office based on poor performance. I am a retired federal civilian with over 30 years in social services and healthcare administration. I served as a supervisor and program manager during my career, where I underwent multiple audits as well as conducted program audits. The procedural maladministration described today are unacceptable and warrant immediate attention. Thank you for your service to the people of Hawaii. Respectfully, Jamie Detweiler.
Thank you.
And here is the proof of receipt of certified mail. I've not received a response.
Next testifier is Adriel Lam, followed by Lynn Surian.
Aloha, Chair Anderson, Commissioners, and Chief Elections Officer Nago. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and thank you for the staff here that's provided the environment for us to have chairs and they'll sit down here. I appreciate the adjustments from the last session. I did prepare written comments for this oral testimony, but as understand Chair Anderson has revised the agenda, so I will not need to speak on agenda item 6. I will continue my comments on agenda item number 7, implement the report on implementations of elections by mail. I find the report very premature, and if the role of the Commission and Office of Election advise the legislature on legislation, they should provide more content and not avoid the two main issues that we have elections by mail: voter participation and fiscal impact. Both are not addressed in the report and explicitly avoided, as past reports have provided fiscal budget figures as well as voter participation. This report did not, as well as testimony from all our commission hearings, issues that have been brought up. These do not seem to have been transmitted to the legislature to inform them of what is going on with their elections and issues and concerns from the citizens here. One of the issues I'd like to bring up is the cast vote record. As Corinne Solomon has testified about access to cast vote records, I did review the primary cast vote records and found that there were, out of the 340,159 XML files in the ballots, there were files that were filed into duplicate batches. And in some of these batches, there were missing sequence numbers, as well as some of these files that have a file modification date of January 1st, 2022. I've asked these questions of the Office of Elections, referred it to the Elections Commission, hoping that this will be addressed or a satisfactory answer will be provided. Things like this, I hope these can be transmitted to the legislature. We look forward to working with the legislature in reforming our elections. But as observed during the general election, things like voter service centers, a lot of people came up to the drop boxes, as I observed, asking where they could go vote in person. Many people came on the very last day because they wanted to do it in person. These and other things, and one observation that I think is critical to the security of elections is that I observed and confirmed with an election worker that there is only one key that opens all the locks on the 15 drop boxes, large drop boxes on Oahu. I don't know if that's the same thing with other counties, but in Honolulu, that was one key that could open any drop boxes. There's no
10 seconds.
Key control or chain of custody documentation on when those drop boxes are opened or closed. So thank you for the time to testify. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
Next testifier is Lynn Durian, followed by Thomas Stanton.
Aloha, my name is Lynn Sarayan, testifying to the status of operations report. And I'd like to know how the Office of Elections explains that we had the lowest voter turnout compared to the past 5 election cycles, when the process of all mail-in ballots was supposed to increase voter turnout. As a citizen journalist speaking to the people, what I've heard all too often is voters saying that they have no trust in our corrupted systems and processes and that their vote doesn't matter. It comes to no surprise when you have the Office of Elections admitting to 100,000 deadwood voters on the voter rolls, the Elections Commission admitting to utter incompetence with regards to technology equipment and vendor management, and have witnessed the Office of Elections' lack of cooperation and pitiful responses to citizens' requests for transparency. We are still waiting for an adequate response from the Office of Elections regarding cast vote records from the 2022 primary election to receive data in a format that allows proper analysis and contains the data points that we requested. A recent Rasmussen poll found that most voters believe cheating may have influenced this year's election and think voting by mail makes it easier to cheat. So how can the cost and effort to put in this all mail-in ballot process into place be justified, knowing that it is incredibly vulnerable to fraud and has not produced the desired outcomes? On election day in the general election, we saw long lines to vote in person, clearly showing us that citizens here in Hawaii want to vote in person on election day, and the provisions to do so were by no means adequate. With this lack of trust by the voters, one would expect the Hawaii Office of Elections might be looking to provide more transparency to build trust in the future. However, at this moment in time, it is trying to dismiss a legal challenge that's calling out the Office of Elections for not following Hawaii statute requirements regarding a post-election pre-certification audit that is required for no less than 10% of precincts, comparing paper ballots with the tallies of the voting system in this past general and previous elections. The Office of Elections is reusing a previous excuse claiming that the plaintiffs cannot prove fraud that could cause a difference in the election results. However, as has been discussed here already, meanwhile, the office is also withholding that information that could prove or disprove fraud. The office is also claiming that while the system they use is often commonly referred to as an electronic voting system, in actual operation, it is limited to counting votes. Therefore, it is more properly referred to as an automatic tabulation system or mechanical tabulation system. So the office is looking to be exempt from having to follow the law with this pathetic excuse. The statute itself defines a voting system. The statute itself defines a voting system as any system by which votes are cast and counted. So this attempt to weasel their way out does the exact opposite of instilling trust. It makes us very suspicious, and it makes the Office of Elections look very guilty. Thank you for your time.
Next testifier is Thomas Stanton.
Aloha, excuse me, Tom Stanton, Hawaii Republican Party. Aloha, Tom Stanton, Hawaii Republican Party District Chair 15, also Kauai Election Integrity Chair. I'm submitting testimony again for issues with chain of custody that occurred on Kauai. I have formally submitted a complaint to this body, and I was told through the previous commissioner, William D., that it would be on the agenda, or he recommended that it would be on the agenda today. Basically, just to reiterate what I've already testified before, we have a pattern of chain of custody problems on Kauai. We had a serious discrepancy in the 2020 election of 3,400 ballots. We then had a second discrepancy of almost 2,000 ballots in the primary. And then when it came to the general election, the Kauai Elections Division will simply not give us any information as to chain of custody. The United States Election Assistance Commission defines as their most basic requirements to provide the documentation of the number of ballots collected, delivered, or counted. That's clearly not being done on Kauai. And the Kauai Elections Division has admitted that they simply can't provide accurate numbers. And we know that is not true because there are procedures in place for the drop box pickups. We also know that there are receipts available for the US mail ballots that are received. So I would hope that the commission would look into this and provide some recommendations for chain of custody in general to our elections. I also want to state that Kauai was one of the few, the only county that allowed for signature verification observation. And during that process, we discovered that at least 10% and possibly as much as 15% of all ballots that came through our system did not have a source signature on file. And those had to go to a secondary review to find a source signature. So we're talking about thousands of ballots, that potentially did not have a source signature. So that was a serious problem. I will also just make a final comment on the audits that are being performed by the Office of Elections. Kauai was actually the only county that was allowed to count all their paper ballots. And that is the standard that should be set for the rest of the state. We only were able to audit 2 races, but precedent has been set to audit the paper ballots against the machine results. And that should be the standard for the entire state, no matter what the cost or added inconvenience is. It's the only way to determine if the machine results are accurate and if our elections are legitimate. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify.
Chair, there are no more testifiers.
Scotty, you're muted.
Okay, that's better. Okay, sorry. We'll be moving now into executive session. And
I'd like to ask a quick question. The testifier number 1 mentioned written testimony, and I haven't seen that.
on what?
Commissioner Curtis, all written testimonies that were submitted were sent via the Google Drive link. I can send it again.
Thank you. I'll go look.
Okay. Again, we're now moving into executive session. We will be back. Probably won't be that long if you want to stick around. Otherwise, do I hear a motion to go into executive session? Cynthia?
For what purpose?
Approval of the minutes from the last
Thank you.
executive session.
Would move to executive session for the approval of the minutes of the last executive session meeting.
That's the first thing on the yes, that's correct. Something, it's a tech that we have to do it. Or we don't have to do it, but I mean, we do.
That was the motion to go into executive session.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, here we go. Everybody get the unmute?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Well, guess what?
Yes, sir.
We get to go back into executive session. Okay, the next thing is the biannual evaluation of our director, Scott Nago. And we have to do that in executive session. So I call for a motion to enter executive session.
For the purpose of the Nago's review.
Correct.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Jamie.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, Jamie. Move us on. Okay. Everybody back, need to unmute Cynthia. Effort. Okay, well, better or for worse, that is the extent of our meeting today. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Cynthia, so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you very much for your service. Appreciate it. Hello.